Victoria, welcome to Mother Fracas. Welcome to my podcast. How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me here.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming on. It's a pleasure. I got a bunch of questions for you. Hope you have a few for me.
Yeah, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I just literally made it in. I had a morning gym session which I was trying to be over ambitious, and my limits became very clear very quickly, so I cut it short today and I refocused on what I was meant to do, which is this. Maybe perhaps introduce yourself. Who's Victoria Blinova, and what do you do?
Oh gosh. Well, professionally speaking, I was always very passionate about growth and international growth. So I've started my career in consulting with a focus on marketing. I then moved into Nestlé, where I led digital transformation for 16 markets. And I then moved into Google in London, where I worked initially in marketing analytics, and then as a strategic partner manager, where I managed hundreds of creators at some point and agencies and helped them grow sometimes from 0 to 1 billion views or 0 to 1 million subscribers in 6 months or so. Now I'm working in Google AI Cloud team, where I take care of the biggest customers, the biggest clients Google has, and I help them accelerate and transform with AI. So any massive transformations. Also, I guess similarly, growing companies at scale, in this case from an AI perspective. And I absolutely love talking about the connection between a growing creator and growing companies via AI. Outside of work, as I mentioned to you, I love the gym. What else? I love public speaking. I used to do stand-up comedy for a year. That's my fun fact. But I'm not that funny. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm a corporate employee.
We all have a similar or story or blessing, whichever way you look at it.
Exactly. But hey, stand-up helped me a lot when it comes to public speaking and attending podcasts. So, that's my little middle ground.
Okay, that's exciting. Wow, you've had a nice, interesting path. I like that. Stand-up, I'm not going to leave that alone. Yeah, I'm not. I want to hear something, but we'll somehow weave it in. You know, if I don't hear anything now, we're gonna have to get you to do at least a one-time stand-up show at some point. Yeah.
Hey,
yeah.
a lot of my stand-up jokes didn't age well, so I can get canceled for the rest of my life. I'm Russian, so yeah.
Are they Googleable?
I made sure they're not.
Do you have
depends how good you are. Maybe you'll find something.
As a Google employee, do you get access to the back end and then you can go and search for your stuff and delete it? The back end of the internet.
No way. Google is very strict with data. So I mean, even if I did, I think it'd be it's very, very strict, to be honest. So
but
we also have access to a project we're working on with our colleagues. So it's very, very strict with data.
Theoretically, you must know where the keys are to the back end at Google of the internet.
No, truly, I wouldn't know. Truly.
Okay, fair enough. I respect that. That's fine. I guess that's the smart answer. Okay, look. Thanks for coming on. You know, just briefly, Mother Fracas we're a content house. You know, a podcast, not just podding, but very interested in just telling stories about entrepreneurs, founders. I myself have been in music tech as a founder for the last since 2013, so that's 13 years now. Ups, downs, ins, outs, wins, losses, running out of VC's office with the bag, and they're like, no, sorry, bring that back, we decided not to give it to you just yet. All of the above. Great times. As you can tell, I'm a bit of a talker, and at some point I was like, hey, listen, let's tell stories. So I relate to you in that regard, and I just really was passionate about telling the stories, because the more you get into these entrepreneur circles, you then meet founders, you go to events, blah blah blah, and you realize that there's a common thread in entrepreneurship, which is usually the passion, and the spirit, of fighting through intense circumstances. This is where the name comes from. A mudder is a racehorse that that runs through the mud, or it's a very, very resilient horse. And obviously fracas is like noise. put them together, you have like, I don't know, a spirited beast that makes it through the noise. And that's the concept. And very much of our existence today as entrepreneurs or founders or creatives is figuring out how to stand out, right? And figuring out how to, I guess, build our brands, our entities, empires, whatever you want to call it. And of course, AI is playing a massive role in that and everything around us. So my professional and personal interest in getting you on this was really just to understand the tools that you're supporting, shipping, but also just you as you've got quite a colorful background in terms of organization to organization, the roles, and get your take on a few things. So me as an up and coming creator, / entrepreneur myself, I've got a page that I'm trying to grow, right? And I'm trying to get visibility myself. So I'll really take this as a crash course. I might ask you to even send like a certificate after this so I can like put it up and say certified by Victoria. No. But listen, first question, right? Let's talk about attention because we are in the attention economy. What did YouTube really teach you about holding, attention that brands with massive budgets still get wrong? Let's start there.
It's a very interesting question. So what I've, noticed quite a bit, at least in the roles that I've been, where I was essentially growing something from zero to millions of subscribers, billions of views, is that you need to create a program or some kind of circumstance or environment for creative freedom. And this is what I've noticed brands can sometimes not afford, or let's say don't have the systems to afford. So in short, what a lot of brands a lot of mistakes brands make is the fact that, one, they are forcing creators into a certain script, and two, they expect a lot from one post or from one video. I'd say instead what you need to do is, one, allow creative freedom. The reason the creator has those millions of subscribers or millions of views is because they know how to grab that attention. So just truly give that creative freedom to whoever's creating the video, and don't force a specific script on them. But on top of that, very, very important, and this is what so many miss out on, volume is important. So expecting a very high return from one post is great. That's very often why they add usually paid media behind it, but essentially, ideally, you put a creator into a program where they create at volume. Think at least 3 posts, if not more. People talk about ambassadorship quite often. That could be a good model, but in short, let them create more and give them freedom. Don't force them into a script. Don't force them into saying certain things that don't make sense for their channels.
It's a thin line though, right? It's a thin line because they obviously have maybe their brand ethics, guideline, rules, etc., right? So like, how do you really control that?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question, because as I mentioned, a lot of brands don't have a system for that, where they actually go, what do we do? I mean, I was at Nestlé on the brand side, where I kept pushing, like, let's work with influencers and everything. They're like, well, there's, you need to check that we won't get into trouble for working with them. So we have these 3 that we're comfortable working with. And I was like, it doesn't work.
Oh, wow.
You need 50, hundreds. And you need them to create, ideally, tens and hundreds of videos. And they're like, yeah, wait, do you want to get in trouble for, launching this campaign? Do you want to get in legal trouble and then we all get fined? So how about no? But this is not to say that these systems can be built, as in the way, for example, Nestle did it was at some point, social media came into play and they had to adjust. And what did they do is they created content systems where you can call, let's say broadly, a content factory, where they hired people, or they created a system where you approve things daily or you approve things weekly, and that's just the new work of a marketeer, the new workflow of a marketeer, where you approve assets on a weekly, if not daily basis. Before social media, that wasn't the case, right? You approve a banner once a quarter or whatever it is. So, you adjust. And I think accordingly you can adjust where you're working with 50 or 100 creators, and you're approving a lot of videos, and maybe you have a system around how you approve it. And I mean, again, with AI, a lot of this can be automated or like augmented. So there's ways to adapt, but in short, you need to allow for some level of freedom if you want
Yeah.
attention grabbing creatives, and you need to allow for volume of creatives. You need to allow for those, small mistakes, because the more you create, the more likely one of those assets will outperform so much that it will be worth all the ROI.
Wow. So just like as you're talking right now, I'm thinking, and from a creator's perspective, because if I'm a creator and I have, let's say, multiple of these kind of clients, not all of them may get approved. That's quite a task. Let's start from scratch. What would you say the must-have lean AI stack for like a creative team or even a marketing team should have right now?
Yeah, I think the way I look at it and what I believe is best practice is narrowing down your use case. So I think of it as you want to work with a stack that you will actually use and that will actually bring a lot of impact to your workflow. So for example, as a creator, it's quite easy where you can actually use one of those AI chatbots and analyze how much time you spend on tasks that are repetitive. And
Okay.
just, probably, put out the list of things you do throughout the day, throughout the week, and then analyze with AI, hey, how much of this is repetitive? Give me ideas on what is repetitive. But then also to that lens of repetition or automation, add the lens of how much of it is giving me significant return on investment. Or let's say, almost you give a benchmark of like, okay, if I automate this 20% of my workflow, which is probably, let's say, script writing, and what's, maybe the value of the script writing. Does script writing make or break my creative? Probably it's very valuable. So then you actually all of a sudden you see that, automating this workflow will bring me, I don't know, $1,000 per asset or whatever it is, whatever your approximate value is. And all of a sudden you realize, my goodness, I really need to automate this, because the more script writing I do of higher quality, the more likely I'm going to make X amount throughout the day. And then that leaves me time to do more business development, to do more, one-on-one sessions, or do something that no chatbot would ever be able to do for me. So doing that exercise is very, very important. And my strong recommendation is start with one thing and just nail it, as in do it exceptionally well, where you truly feel that, let's say 20%, you're saving 20% time. And that 20% of time on a weekly basis is $1,000 value or whatever it is for you. And this is where you can then, go further and do the second use case and third use case and fourth use case. And to answer your question about tooling, right, that first use case, it depends on what tool you choose based on your use case. But it could be you going into, I'm a Google employee, so of course I'm quite biased, but you can go into Gemini, right? And you can create a gem, and then that can help. That gem could be called a script writer, for example.
Yeah.
And then you just keep returning to that gem to make sure that you have outstanding scripts written. So that's the very lean way of how you can start.
Okay. All right. Really interesting. That my analysis of that is that it's really where you started is really from like time management and time saving, right? Because you're kind of like doing like an overarching kind of view, bird's eye view in your process, then identifying where there's wastage and then automating what you can and then getting specialist tools. Then that's interesting.
Yeah.
Honestly,
So
I haven't done that actually.
Yeah. So it's almost doing like an audit of your work and trying to see what can be automated. But it's not just time saving. What I do want to add, there's a lens of value. So as in, for example, you realize that 10% of your time you do research, and for the best next viral idea, next viral podcast. So then what value would you add to that? That's potentially, a $10,000 idea, $1 million idea. So then all of a sudden you're like, while you save only 10% of your time, the value is massive there. So you want to actually go deeper in this specific idea. So it's not just about, say, time management. It's also about what value that level of automation or augmentation can bring to you, where all of a sudden you feel like, oh my God, if I get an assistant for this, I can actually take my business to the next level. Truly looking at those two metrics. There's other metrics you can look into, but this is like lean stack approach.
If you're building products in music and entertainment, you know this industry plays by its own rules. Metadata, royalties, licensing, legacy systems, fan platforms, fan experiences, new technologies, and constant pressure to deliver. Music Tech Lab works with teams across the industry, from startups launching new ideas to established businesses tackling complex product and technological challenges. The difference is really you don't have to explain why music is different. How many of you have been there? You keep having to explain why music is different. No, it's not just like, oh, something I loved growing up. No. It's different. There's a whole set of requirements here. These guys already get it. They get it. So if you're looking for a new partner who completely understands both the technical side and the realities of the music business, talk to Music Tech Lab. Go straight to the comments. There's a link directly to our page, and you'll get a consultation, a whole product review, clearly understand where you are, what the needs are, and how we can build onward and upward. I like your approach. It's maybe some say it's obvious, but sometimes we overlook the obvious, right?
Now, people are overcomplicating it. As of now, some numbers, I don't know what are specific numbers, but not that many are adopting AI. So like around 50% of people are not adopting AI. And even out of the 50%, around 10% only are using AI meaningfully, right? So what I'm trying to say here is when we overcomplicate and use 10 million tools, everyone's coming to me always with the question, what's the number one tool? What's the number one tech stack? And to me, it's like, this actually depends on you. I like to compare things with food, maybe because I'm a foodie. What is the best diet is like, well, what are your conditions and what are your goals and what do you want to achieve and when? So then and the best diet or the best stack would be based on who you are. Are you a marketeer? Are you an agency person? Are you a creator? And then, how much time are you spending on this annoying thing or that annoying thing, and how much money do you want to make? So, and then you optimize based on it, but really, really start small, because if you don't start small, you make it overly complicated and then just harder to scale.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about scale now, right? Let's look at, we looked at the lean stack. What does the big badass, big budget premium version of that stack look like for a marketing agency?
Yeah. So the way I look at it, or I try to come back to, what is AI, right? And it's essentially artificial intelligence based on data, right? Mm-hmm. So here, if you're looking to scale, it's very important you have a strategy around how you're managing your data. And in this specific case, what is recommended is that you have an AI platform where you truly understand how you're managing your data, how you are using the data you have at hand to add value to yourself and your business, right? In the case of, let's say, marketing agency or a marketeer, we have emails, we have creative assets, we have communication with creators, I have a database of creators, I have a database of clients, and all of these are probably in 5 different buckets and highly disorganized. So how do you work on an AI platform to make sure that all these data buckets, for example, speak to each other? Or how do you make sure you create a campaign that is within, let's say, that uses the data that interacts with the creatives you used before with previous creators, but also is relevant to your leads funnel. And all of that is their tools, or not tools, platforms such as, for example, Gemini Enterprise. It's essentially Gemini, but meant for your business, where you can set up the AI platform to make sure that you have multiple agents that are essentially integrated to your company data. So what I'm trying to say is, all of a sudden, let's say you have a bunch of leads data sitting that maybe your overwhelmed salesperson wasn't able to attend, or let's say the salesperson attended to, but your next marketing campaign is something you want to work on, and let's say you want to collaborate with that sales department. All of a sudden you can collaborate via this AI platform and use the data from the sales team, funnel it into marketing, or at the very minimum, be able to do very in-depth research to understand, again, what you already have at hand and how do you make assets that are deeply personalized, and depersonalization will help with conversion. Conversion will help with sales. So I think I'm blabbering a bit here.
No. I get it. You're not at all. Please continue. Because I guess what I'm thinking is like, so in my scenario, right, is I have a small team, yeah, and I use a bunch of tools. Actually, I'm still experimenting. I use OpenAI, I use Claude, I use Gemini, right? And for me, the best use comes when everything starts to be integrated across tasks, across roles, across team members. And so that's where I am at the moment. It's just experiencing integration between teams. But I have a small team. On the flip side, my wife works for a large tech company and they have a big team, right? And I'm looking at how they integrate across tasks and work with each other. And I'm seeing it in real time, you know, the speed and the, you know, of their work and the quality. So I get what you're saying. I was just kind of like in my mind comparing the two scenarios.
Yeah. And there's essentially, you know, solutions for quite a few of these. So for smaller businesses, right, you can also work with Gemini Enterprise, but probably there's also Google Workspace. There's quite a few tools, but where just my recommendation is just make sure you integrate your data, your emails, your Google Drive, you know, your marketing assets. Everything needs to be in one place. So the next time you do your second campaign or third campaign, you're not creating from scratch. You're basing it off the data and performance that happened before, and just, you know, building upon that versus every single time, you know, in a very siloed approach, create campaigns or create videos, podcasts, so on and so forth.
Yeah. How would you say, like, this is me just trying to pick your brain as somebody who's worked with content creators, who's now at Google, like, how should creators go about like using data? And I know that's a very broad question, but it's intentional because we have so much data around us, specifically in our interest area or just in the market, or like, and it becomes tricky. How do I first get to understand this? Am I looking at the right data, and how can I use it either to create more, or do you get where I'm going with this?
Yeah. I mean, the way I interpret this question is that creators, like you as a creator, you have a lot of backend data on your YouTube channel or your Instagram page, and you want to, and there's just an overwhelming amount of metrics, that's for sure.
Yes.
But I'd say, again, narrow it down to what do you want to achieve. Very, very important. It's a philosophy I try to adhere to in life, as in, you know, what's I think Oprah said it, ambitious people, how are ambitious people separated from non-ambitious people? And ambitious people know what they want. So just know your objective as a creative. Let's say 1 million subscribers, whatever it is, by, you know, I don't know, in 3 years, in 10 years. So have that objective, and then look at then your key metrics that will get you to that objective. So why did I specifically say subscribers? If it's subscribers, then you actually need to look at rates and metrics that bring you to subscribers, and you need to track that. So, but if it is you want to make sure just as more people as possible see your campaign, then it could be viewership. And then this is where you look at viewership data. So and will always be an overwhelming amount of data. So this is sometimes almost a recommendation where maybe you create an AI assistant, which is an analyst that is there to help you focus on specific metrics and help you crunch that data in relation to your objective. But very, very importantly, you, as the human in the loop, let's say, of the process, you need to set an objective so that you're going the right direction when it comes to looking at this data. I hope that clarifies, right?
It kind of does, right? Because that's also where I am right now, is I've got all of this data from multiple platforms, and now I'm trying to create tooling to act as my analyst and avoid hallucinations and avoid just like unnecessary pats at the back, like, oh yeah, you're doing a great job. No, I want it to be extremely critical. But, you know, I'm no analyst. I know my industry very well, but So that's where I am right now, is
Yeah.
trying to create the tooling to act like as a really, really tough analyst for me.
So I'd say, look, I believe within YouTube there is already a chatbot that you can interact with that gives you very good feedback.
And lastly, in closing, fast forward 3 years, right? Fast forward 3 years. What does the smartest, most like brand efficient creator look like? They've taken into account the way the industry is changing, the tools, brands outlook. What would you say that person or people or team looks like?
Creator, right?
Yes.
Well, one, they...
Can I interject? I'm going to interject, pardon me. The reason why I'm leaning on creator and passionate about creators, because I have a strong belief that the concept of creator is growing beyond a content creator or, I think because of the tooling that we have available today, we're going back to our natural essence as human beings, which is creating. And so their ideas, their concepts, there are things that we want to put out into the world. And now, we can vibe code, we can vibe design, we can build our teams, So when I think creator, I think something much bigger and much more impactful than maybe what it used to be and where we've come from.
Got it. Look, so the way I see it is it would be someone who fully embraced agentic or agentic AI, where I think this is a clear one where they augment a lot of their work through agents. So that's one. Two, it's someone who leaned into their deep expertise or built deep expertise and leaned into it significantly. So, probably three, someone who has explicitly very great taste. So I think these are the three that come to mind, because if it's someone that has deep expertise, they consistently create something of significant value. Two, they're leaning into agentic, meaning they're able to 10x or 100x their outputs. And three, someone with great taste, because storytelling is becoming much more prominent. That's what will set you apart, the many creators that are able to quickly build these days.
Nice. I love that answer. Really, really nice. Okay. I'm gonna print that on the wall next to the certificates.
There's also another one. I didn't want to add the point of like networking, human element, in-person community. I feel like everyone says these things, but that's also, if I would add more, it would be also someone who is deeply in the community and the human aspect of our day-to-day work. And then someone who is, basically is leaned into the human element of work.
100%. But Victoria, super thank you for your time. You're actually the first guest who's like a non-founder, in a sense, like you're not building something, which is great. I think it's a great addition to Mother Fracas, because, we want to get people with domain expertise in specific areas who are helping us founders build cool stuff, So hopefully this is not the last we see of you. Thank you for being with me on this short but sweet episode of Mother Fracas. For those who dare, please follow, subscribe. Mother Fracas, MUDDERFRACI. Yeah. Here, follow, subscribe on YouTube. Please share this. If you know anybody who you think is interested in like creative tech, music tech, creative industries, creative entrepreneurship, creators, please share this with them. Say, hey, check this out. Tell them to comment. Tell them to like. Tell them to critique. If you think I'm absolutely talking bullshit, just, hey, dude, you said this, that. I didn't agree with that. I love a debate. I love a good old debate. So please do that. On Instagram, it's the same at Mother Fracas. On TikTok, it's the same at Mother Fracas. On LinkedIn, it's Mother Fracas. On YouTube, it's Mother Fracas. Spotify, it's Mother Fracas. Everywhere, it's Mother Fracas. Mother Fracas everywhere. So please follow, like, comment, dispute, whatever you want to do, get in touch. And if you think there's somebody interesting I should be speaking to, recommend them. Say, hey, Yao. My name is Yao, by the way, if you didn't catch that. Hey, Yao, there's this person, there's these people, they're talking about some cool stuff. You want to sit down with them, or even some interesting topics. Share them. Yeah? Thank you for your time. We're checking out. Peace.